I hope you're having a good 4th of July holiday, and thankfully there are no tropical concerns. As you can see based on the latest Hurricane Center outlook, there is a tropical wave approaching Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, although the odds of development are near 0%. There is a little added activity in the eastern Pacific. There's a new highlighted area being given a 20% chance of development to the south of Guatemala and El Salvador. More on that in just a moment, but we're also dealing with Tropical Depression 4E. As of the 2 p.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center, maximum sustained winds are 35 miles per hour, and it's moving off toward the west-northwest at 13 miles per hour. It is forecast to briefly become a minimal hurricane by 11 a.m. on Saturday, but the official forecast track continues to take the storm away from Mexico. The tropical depression is looking increasingly more healthy on the visible satellite animation with relatively good outflow in all quadrants. Convection is not all that intense at the moment, but it is developing near the low-level surface circulation, and the water vapor shows a good moisture profile with all of the dry air located well to the west and north of the center of circulation, and it appears that upper-level ridging is allowing for very little in the way of vertical wind shear. So the conditions should be favorable for this storm to develop into a tropical storm, which it would attain the name of Daniel, and it very well could go ahead and become a minimal hurricane before it starts to run into all of this dry air out across the eastern and central Pacific, not to mention the cooler water temperatures that it very well could eventually face. The second tropical disturbance is still somewhat disorganized, and we do not see any indication of a closed low-level surface circulation, and convection remains somewhat sporadic here, but conditions should remain favorable for another development to the south of Mexico. But the good news at this time is it looks as though the ridging, or mid-level ridging across northern Mexico and the southwest United States will hold, thus allowing both of these developing systems to remain well offshore. As we work our way into the Atlantic Basin, there are no immediate concerns near the coast. There was some sporadic shower and thunderstorm activity that fired up during the afternoon hours along the Gulf Coast and southeast United States. However, this activity is beginning to diminish as a result of the lack of daytime heating as we go deeper into the evening hours. And you can also see this tropical wave spreading over Puerto Rico, producing more shower activity. And a lot of this shower activity is being enhanced by a lot of vertical wind shear. So this is good for diurnal convection, but not so much for actual tropical cyclone development. Elsewhere, we're not really seeing much of anything in the Atlantic Basin, so things are relatively quiet on our side of the tropics. The latest 6-day forecast from the CMC model continues to show the Gulf, Caribbean, and Atlantic remaining quiet, with all the tropical action remaining to the south of Mexico and the eastern Pacific, with no threats of any landfalls. The 6-day forecast from the GFS model is also in agreement that we will not only be dealing with Tropical Storm Daniel, but also Tropical Storm Amelia in the eastern Pacific, but much like the CMC, it's continuing to show a westward track away from land while the rest of the tropics remain quiet. Meanwhile, the 5-day forecast from the ECMWF is also latching on to both of the eastern Pacific tropical cyclones, but it is also clearly showing the western U.S. ridge becoming increasingly well established, so therefore it would be very difficult for any one of these storms to try to recurve closer toward land. So that wraps up your 28storms.com tropical update for this Wednesday evening. Keep it tuned to 28storms.com and the Hurricane Tracker app for more updates throughout hurricane season.